The last words my father spoke at the dinner table before the storm hit were, "Stop trying to be clever. Nobody wants another nosy reporter snooping where they're not wanted." He said it with that lopsided half grin he wore when he was trying to coil an insult in a joke, the olive oil glistening in the low kitchen light as he buttered bread. My mother set her lips together and looked away, making the sign of the cross, half prayers, half apologies. My older brother Matteo laughed, not even hiding the derision. This was years ago when I was still trying to convince them and hadn't yet learned that some storms rain only on you and no one else. It started with something small. A column I wrote about the decrepit public library where homeless men carved their names in ancient desks. I brought my clippings home, eager, desperate to be noticed. I wanted to show them something, hunger in my eyes, ink under my fingernails. They read it, then tore into me. "You think you're better than this, than Rome? You think there aren't already enough journalists embarrassing us?" Matteo said, loud enough for neighbors. "Dev, look at these headlines, library in ruins. Even the title is melodrama," my uncle snapped. "Why air our filth in public? It's not art, it's gossip." Matteo, athletic and self-assured since birth, called out from the kitchen. "Maybe he just wants to move to America and make TV movies about gutter rats. Why not? Not good enough for us, right, Dev?" Their laughter leapt from face to face, cicadas in a harsh summer. I felt it burning in my cheeks, in the back of my skull. I heard sentences I would later carry everywhere: ridiculous, embarrassing, hopeless, stone weights, blood-hot and fresh. Some wounds heal over time, but others learn to hide under the skin, swelling with every memory. Sometimes, in the shadowy hour before Rome wakes, I remember that kitchen, the unyielding table, the hum of the fridge. I remember my little sister Chiara looking at me, huge-eyed through a fall of tangled hair, silent and uncertain whose side to take. I didn't have much then, just the city, my notebooks and desire. But as I left the apartment that night, I took something else: the sharp, clean ache of being unwelcome and the knowledge that, perverse as it was, their contempt could be fuel. Time dilates. You blink and a decade is gone, every hour thick with the grime of train stations and cheap pens. Rome is unforgiving, never sentimental. I became a stringer, running after stories wherever they tried to hide. I chased down graft, illegal luxury towers, the belly of the trade in trafficked art. The city whispered its secrets to me: rain-slick alleyways, cigarette smoke threading night air, the silence before a source opens up, scared and hungry. For years I sent home updates, articles starring my byline in Il Messaggero or the international weeklies, links that went ignored. Matteo got married and taught football. My mother kept the house tidy and prayed. The family WhatsApp occasionally blinked alive with wedding photos, recipe arguments, babies. When the story broke, when I finally found it, I was eating cold spinach pie alone, scrolling through old tips. An anonymous source claimed that a Vatican official was laundering millions through the restoration contracts for the Basilica di San Clemente. Most people shrugged. Another routine scandal, another headline. But I saw something new in the details. A paper trail that led not to dusty bureaucrats, but to a network tangled deep in the old families, Camorra contacts, charities that didn't exist outside a PO box, and politicians who were untouchable except by God. I threw myself at the story: 3 dead cell phones in as many months, conversations in parked cars at midnight, notes scribbled in code and locked in hidden folders. My jacket stank constantly of tobacco and cheap cologne, and every night I dreamed of men with no faces. I'm not going to pretend I was fearless. I was terrified. My hands shook when my phone rang at odd hours. Sometimes in station bathrooms I would run the tap just to drown out the sound of my own name being called. But something harder had grown in me, the steel my father tried to crush out, the resolve to outlast the scorn. I was sitting in a small cafe near Piazza Navona the night the editor called. My piece would be front page, international syndication, complete with photographs and financial documents even the police had missed. One of the angles, my angle, had forced the Justice Ministry to act. The morning it ran, 7 men were arrested at dawn, their faces blurry on TV as the sun bled into the sky. No one from home called. Nobody sent so much as a text, but I watched as the city buzzed. My name ran on tickers. I was quoted on talk radio, invited to panels. The woman at my neighborhood tabakeria tilted her head and asked, almost shyly, if the man in the paper was me. For a while I believed that exile was permanent and success cold comfort, but Rome has a way of unearthing the debts you bury, and a family cannot be outrun forever. The email arrived in March just as the Starlings wheeled their mad choreography above the Tiber. It was Chiara, kind-hearted, nervy, now a university student, writing in her careful way. Dev, she said, Papa and Mama want you at Nonna's birthday. Please, it's important. Matteo will be there. Bring your success if you want. Show them. I stared at the screen. For minutes, for an hour, my chest hurt. The city outside blurred along ancient stones, sharp-edged in silver streetlight. I let her words settle until they became a necessity, not a request. The journey across town was awkward and tense, my palms damp, heartbeat uneven. I stopped before the dark green door to our old apartment and pressed my hand to the wood, feeling every scraped memory, every line in the lacquer. Inside, the kitchen was limned in gold from a birthday cake's candles. Nonna sat at the end of the table, eyes cloudy but intent. My mother, thinner than I remembered, clutched a glass. Matteo hovered near the window, broad-shouldered, faded tracksuit, visible tattoo peeking from his collar. I nodded hello, unsure of how to enter their world. The room seemed smaller than I remembered, the smells, frying onions, basil, lemon soap, achingly familiar. Nonna beckoned me with one trembling hand, as if plucking me from the shadows. Dev, she said, her voice papery, come. I leaned down and hugged her. She smelled of lavender and old cotton. For a moment I was 6 again, hiding behind her skirt from the thunder. Matteo didn't bother with small talk. So, he said, arms folded, journalist, I see you on TV sometimes, yeah. His eyes weighed me, searching for fraudulence. You enjoy digging up dirt. I shrugged, not trusting myself. I just write what's true. Matteo snorted. Are you really proud of putting half the city's aristocracy in jail? Not everyone's clapping, you know. My mother set her glass down too hard. Matteo. But I met Matteo's gaze, steel behind my calm. It's not about applause. Sometimes things have to be said, even if no one wants to hear them. For a moment there was silence. The family, the cousins and aunties, turned towards us, ready to pounce or recall or maybe just witness how far I'd grown from their roots. Nonna's eyes moved from my brother to me, quiet, infinite patience. Chiara piped up, breaking the stalemate. What do you do, Dev? I mean, explain for everyone, not just writing. My hands shook as I opened the battered messenger bag I'd carried since I started, the strap worn and familiar. I pulled out my latest magazine, the one with my byline bold on the cover, and exposed not just in print but a small victory lap, my face on the back jacket, curly hair and tired eyes. Look, I said, unfolding the heavy paper, sliding it across the table. The cover was a photograph I'd shot myself, St. Clement at twilight, gold spilling over cracked stones, the shadow of a cross. My article inside. Foreign corruption, bitter evidence, a story that had outlasted the official line. People leaned in. My mother lifted the magazine as if it were glass. Nonna ran her fingers over my name, moving lips noiselessly. Matteo, skeptical at first, flipped through the article. Each turn of the page felt deliberate, almost reluctant. It's in English, he said, squinting. There's a translation on the newspaper's site, I managed, voice soft but edged with steel. But the story... I saw the video, Chiara blurted. The one you did about the statues being fake. My professor made us watch it. Everyone said it was brilliant. There was a hum in the room, not yet admiration but the slowing of antagonism, the considering that comes before change. Matteo kept reading, running his thumb down the column. My uncle, always the cynic, coughed, fiddled with the rim of his glass. So you really found proof, real criminal money. I nodded, breathing quietly. I kept digging. Even when everyone told me to stop, even when the threats came, it's all there, signed contracts, photographs, enough to force them to act. The kitchen buzzed, opinions rolled around, some admiring, some resentful. But the proof was there, irrefutable, real, not the airy thing they'd once mocked. Finally, Nonna lifted her chin, eyes bright. You waited, eh? You were patient, brave. Like your grandfather when he hid the radios. I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. I just couldn't give up. Matteo stayed quiet, flipping the last pages slowly. I saw him searching for weaknesses, for something false. As he finished, he closed the magazine and looked at me not as younger brother, but as a man whose choices mattered. He sighed heavy and forced a grin. Guess you got lucky. But Chiara shook her head and beamed. Not luck. He worked for it, he fought. Dinner carried on, the cake came out, toasts were made and laughter, real this time, rippled across the table. My mother pressed a hand to my cheek, eyes damp. We worried about you, she said, words barely a whisper. But maybe we didn't see what you were doing. Later, as I stood on the mosaic balcony that overlooked the street, the smells of oregano and rain rising from the cobblestones, Matteo joined me. He stared into the night quiet. Finally, he spoke. I was harsh, hard to admit when you're wrong, isn't it? I let the silence stretch, stars pricking the velvet sky. You were protecting the family pride. Sometimes I think I only kept going to prove you all wrong. He grinned, shadowed and sheepish. Worked, didn't it? You showed them us me. He nudged me, rough as always but softer now. You're not so ridiculous after all, Fratellino. We stood together watching the city that made and unmade us. Windows glowed softly, conversations and lives flickering behind lace curtains. Rome continued on, indifferent, simultaneously infinite and close as family. I felt something pain-bright ease inside me, a long, dammed-up tide. Returning home did not erase those old hurts or grant me their easy affection. But in that kitchen, among the wary eyes and hesitant praise, I saw what I wanted all along was not just vindication, but to be seen and known for who I really was, stubborn dreams and all. The world outside roared and whirred, but the real victory was here, in my city at that table, surrounded by those who'd mocked me until the proofs on paper made them pause. I suppose I proved them wrong, but what surprised me most was, in doing so, how much I proved myself right. And for the first time in years, as I hugged Chiara, as Nonna squeezed my arm and Matteo grumbled his awkward respect, I was grateful for every cruel word that once tried to hold me back. They had not broken me, they had made a spine out of tenderness and steel. That night, listening to my family argue over politics and soccer, I felt, not at home exactly, but not an Excel either. Something in between, as all the best stories are, as Rome is, ancient, battered, beautiful and impossible not to love.